Now, you know, on this show, we don't just talk to people who are famous. We talk to people who changed something. People who saw the world one way and then made us all see it differently. My next guest, well, he did that with a camera. Peter Gilbert is a Chicago kid who became one of the most important documentary filmmakers of the last 30 years. Before he ever pointed a lens at a basketball court, he was learning his craft from Haskell Wexler, one of the greatest cinematographers in the history of cinema. Then he spent 5 years shooting alongside of Barbara Koppel on American Dream, which won the Academy Award. Think about that apprenticeship. Then came Hoop Dreams. Peter was the cinematographer and a producer on a film that was supposed to be a 30-minute short about an outdoor court on the west side of Chicago. Instead, he and Steve James followed Arthur Agee and William Gates for 7 years, shot 300 hours of footage, and helped create what Roger Ebert called the best film of the decade. What the International Documentary Association voted the greatest documentary of all time. A film about basketball that was really about America, about family, about dreams, about poverty, promise, and what happens when a system chews kids up and calls it opportunity. He's a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the Directors Guild, and IATSE 600. He co-manages 2 film funds that put money directly into the hands of young filmmakers, and for the last 14 years, he's been teaching the next generation at Wake Forest University, helping to run one of the most respected documentary film programs in the country, where he teaches not just how to make a film, but the ethics of telling someone else's story. This is a man who has been in rooms with Sundance juries and on the South Side playgrounds of Chicago, who's filmed death row chaplains and Olympic runners, who's been to Cannes and Vietnam and everywhere in between. But most importantly, he's my close friend. Thank you, Peter, for sitting down with me, brother. I really appreciate it, man.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you've been behind the camera most of the time, filming me. For many people that don't know anything but the intro that I did, but you really helped me on this journey of writing my book. It's like you documented the process of writing a book. And I just want to, thank you for that. But I want to start off.
Well, we've been on a hell of a journey together, man.
We have.
For 15 years.
Man.
You think about it, we've produced like 8 to 10 movies at least. Mm-hmm. We've had 5 or 6 movies at Sundance.
Yeah.
We've, as I said, I think we were a little bit ahead of our time.
Yeah, but no, for me, it was really good having a friend I could learn from, or a friend, and then one that I could learn from when you talk about just this industry. And I'm going to get into some of the movies that we've done because I'm really excited about it. And the number one thing I hear is, wow, I can't believe you've done that many independent films, because we really haven't talked about it much, but excited to kind of share some of the names and the artists that we've worked
Sure.
with. But, let's just start with you. You're a Chicago kid.
Yes.
What made someone from Chicago like yourself want to pick up a camera and not a ball, a bat, a stick, a book? I'm sure you had to do all those things at the time, but what made you want to be a filmmaker?
Well, let's put it this way. If I was like every other kid from Chicago, I wanted to play basketball. But let's just say I got a lot of pine time.
Okay. Well, I know you had game. I seen your shot, Peter.
But I was not great, and I loved it. I loved to play street ball. That was my favorite thing to do, or at the Y, that kind of ball. And so anyways, for me, basketball was sort of one of these places where I met people that were from all different neighborhoods in Chicago. And remember, because I'm older, street ball was where it was at. Mm-hmm. Very few people played inside, only in the winter at YMCA's. There was no like club ball or any of that stuff. So it was really fun in the sense that you never knew who was going to show up. And then there were regular games and stuff like that. So I loved basketball, but the reason I sort of got into filmmaking was I was a music major. My brother was a musician, and I always wanted to be in music. And I've played guitar since I was a little kid. And I went to Madison, University of Wisconsin, for music. and I had a very famous jazz musician come up to me. I was in the jazz music program, say, "I think you should take the other fork in the road."
Really? What instrument you were playing and who said it?
Guitar.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Cecil Taylor.
Okay, Cecil
very
Taylor.
famous dude. And I think he wasn't saying that I couldn't do okay, but the fact was, it was great advice because I can play, I just can't play as fast as other people learn. So, you know, there's people who just walk in and they're just automatic. And so I grew up with a father who started collecting photography when he was in the 1930s. He loved photography. So he was like from Hyde Park in Chicago, poor kid. He loved photography. He made his Brownie camera, the kind that Kodak, into an enlarger and would make prints in the washroom. And he just started writing because everything was in magazines. Photography wasn't like an art form. So he would just write to all these famous photographers and they would just send him pictures because they were surprised that no one cared about what they were doing.
And back then it was no Getty images you can't use.
No, there was no. They had to send you,
right,
you know, the pictures. So my dad started collecting on and off, and so I was always around photography, and I was always around photographers. And my dad is an incredible photographer, and his work is in like the Museum of Modern Art and a lot of museums. He's really good.
Well, since we're on your parents, could you?
And then my mom was a theater maid.
My
mom was in theater and in radio, and then turned into a playwright and then taught theater. So my first production, I was an icicle when I was 3 years old. I was fantastic.
I wish you probably were moving.
It was one of my greatest performances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, did you ever get a chance to continue to go to work with your parents, or was your father taking pictures as you guys were walking home? How did what's the artist lifestyle?
My dad was like with camera all the time. I was lucky because I was at the age where he really started to collect, and so everything we did was around his collecting. So if we went to California, we were going there to see Ansel Adams, you know, or to see any of the F-64 photographers, the really famous, incredible folks. And I was lucky, my older brothers didn't get to participate. It's the one thing that was good about being the youngest.
Right, because that age separation, they probably were on doing their thing.
And then during the day, I would come home from school and there would be boxes and I would wait for my dad to come home and then we would open them up and there'd be all these different new photos from different photographers and all this sort of crazy stuff.
Just as a son, you saw the joy in his face opening those boxes.
Yeah. And my dad was not like snooty about art. Like, he just laid them all over the house. To him, they were just, again, remember, there wasn't much value to them at that point.
Right.
And to him, he just liked them. He would just stick a picture in your face and go, "That's good, huh?"
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like some, you know, look at the pointillism of the blah, blah, blah. Right. He was really great about doing that. And so I started going out and actually taking photos with all of these different photographers.
Wow.
So the first photograph that I really took was with Ansel Adams and stuff like that. And so I started to learn. And I totally put that away for music because it was like my dad's thing. And I just in my era, music was everything. And, you know, you look at me now, but I wanted to be Jimi Hendrix like every other kid.
I've seen your license with the long hair.
Yeah, I wanted to be Jimi Hendrix and I wanted to be, you know, Magic Sam. Those were the two, you know, blues and, you know, rock and roll. So, I met all these kind of crazy blues guys. So I made lots of films on blues musicians and stuff like that. And also people during that time when they were alive, they were coming through town all the time, you know, to make films on folks before they passed away. I was on campus and they used to have movies all the time. You know, before VHS and all that stuff, you would go to an auditorium and they have 10 movies a night, you know, around campus. So I just took a shot and went to NYU Film School and started making films.
Just out of nowhere, say, I'm gonna go to NYU, one of the best.
Well, it's sort of, like, and I didn't really know what a documentary film was then. I only had watched narrative films. And then there was this guy at NYU who sort of was the guy who started the film school, came in, looked at some of my photographs and said, you should think about this documentary thing. It's not real big like right now, but maybe it'll get big later. And I fell in love with that, as well as narrative film. But I mean, I fell in love really with documentary stuff.
Did you fall in love with documentary films because of your father and pictures? Because it seems like documentaries let the pictures and let the story speak for itself more than film?
It's that thing of capturing a moment. Like, we've done that, right? I mean, all the times we've been out filming, like, say going to the storage shed with your dad. It's like that scene, it's like capturing a moment of time.
Yeah.
And I think what I loved about documentary, or what I loved about film, was the idea that it wasn't just one picture, it was actually hearing people, getting to interact with people. And I was always relatively shy, but documentary was one of these things that sort of pulled me out of my shell, because it forced you into doing things, meeting people, calling people, you know, like how we met, right? I mean, that's a big leap to go, because first, you know, I meet you, I've been in awe of you since I saw you play when you were 14, right?
Yeah,
and even meeting
New
you
Jersey.
and saying, hey, I want to document your life. And, you know, there was that sort of competitive Chris Webber glare. Like,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying? Like that, but I love that thing of like building trust with folks, hopefully, and being able to tell their stories. And also, more importantly, allowing folks to actually take control of their own narrative. Because I'm not a journalist, I make documentary films, and one of the things that I feel that documentary filmmakers can do is help people control their narrative.
It definitely can, and it's been such a powerful tool. But could you explain a little bit, because my artist friends were really excited about this interview as well, and everyone kept mentioning the name, I might be pronouncing it wrong, Haskell Wexler.
Oh, Haskell, yeah. He was one of my mentors. I was very lucky.
So he told you to buy a camera, go home, and just make films. And
well, I'll tell you.
Who is he, and what does it mean when
Can I tell you a really funny story?
Yeah, please.
So, like, in the mid to late 70s, I went out to LA. And I went down like the producer's book from A to Z. And at S, I hit a guy who was from Chicago, a guy named Michael Schamberg. And he's produced a ton of, like, The Big Chill and Caddyshack and all that stuff. And so I worked in their office, and he said, well, I can't really pay you anything, but like you could do our laundry, you know, take our kids around. I didn't care because I had to pass on to the Fox lot, which was like really cool.
And what was on the Fox lot?
Nothing that I could do, but I was up in the office being a PA basically and doing stuff. And so what was interesting is I worked for them for about 5 or 6 months, and Michael said to me, he pulled me over and he goes, okay, so you're not a screw up. What do you want to do? And I said, I'm a shooter. Now that's a bad way to put it, but I'm a cinematographer. And he said, you're a cinematographer. And key thing I always say to people is like, tell people, don't say I'll do anything. Tell them what you are going to do, or that's what I am. I don't want to be, I am a cinematographer. So the next day, I get a call from Haskell Wexler. Haskell won 2 Academy Awards. I don't know how many times he was nominated. He's one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. And he also was a great documentary cinematographer as well. And so Haskell said, meet me at the Santa Monica airport in the morning. And that day I went from PAing to going to shoot the Beach Boys, and he was doing all these different concert films, and I did about 25 concert films with him.
You had never shot a concert before?
No. And the great thing was I was hired as an assistant. And he said, do you know how to use this one camera? And I go, yeah, because I owned one. So I assisted as an assistant camera person for 1 day. So I was very lucky. And then Haskell was this really great mentor, like somebody you could always go to. And after a while, he said to me, you know, you don't want to like go up the normal track. You want to tell stories. So just go plant a flag somewhere, buy a camera, tell stories, and when you come back to LA, be who you are. So that you don't have to make any, or to New York, you don't have to make excuses for yourself. It's
So
like,
when he
this
told
is who
you
I
this-
am.
When he told you this, what were your first thoughts? Did you think he was just BSing or kind of getting you away, or
No, I
saying, "Go
was dying
somewhere
to
else"?
go get out of LA
Okay.
and go back to New York or Chicago. And I picked Chicago because my family was there.
And so really he was saying, you're pretty good at this, kid, like go work and do things for yourself to establish yourself
I think he
instead of
saw
wasting
that I
time.
loved documentary,
Okay.
and he loved it. And there wasn't much documentary in LA at the time. You have to remember, in that era, only 3, maybe 4 documentaries a year ever got released into a movie theater. I mean, it's not like today where you can go to Netflix and they're all over the place.
Right, they have a documentary section. Right,
And all
exactly.
that. I mean,
Right.
it was really not, it wasn't the best place to go make a living, so. But at the same time, it was this really kind of amazing thing to do. So I went and planted a flag in Chicago to be near my family, and then met the folks at Cartemquin Films, where I've been forever, and which is the oldest documentary film house in the country, and had mentors there, and they introduced me to people like Barbara Koppel, who's won 2 Academy Awards. She was amazing filmmaker, and I shot one of her films, American Dream.
Yeah, let me
and
ask
that
you about
that sort of had me take off, and that was a 6-year shoot.
Let me ask you about that, because that was such an important piece. And, when I talk to you, the first thing you always go to is community, how the people are treated. I mean, this is something in which we watch a community be kind of torn apart by situations at that time. Did that frame you as a documentarian to always care about how did that impact you working with her, and then working on something that you're filming, 6 years and talking about kind of the patience as a filmmaker you have to have for filming 6 years while the story's going on?
Barbara was like my doctoral degree. You know what I mean? Like being with her. And it was only the 2 of us. So she did sound, I did camera. So Barbara's telling this story about, so it was when Reagan came into office, and the first thing he wanted to do, you'll relate to this with your dad, was he wanted to kill all the unions. And I'm sure, if you remember, Detroit went through a huge strike then. So she was doing the meat packers unions. So we were all over the Midwest, and mostly in Minnesota. And this one town, Hormel, was there, and it was kind of like what people said the American dream was supposed to be like, whereas the name of the film. And then the union started, because of Reagan was starting to break the union apart, which then broke the union apart inside itself. And so even though it's an old film, if you play it today,
Still resonates.
it will resonate the same way.
Yeah.
And basically, you saw this whole town just fall apart, which was a really incredible functioning Midwestern town. And it happened all over, we filmed this all over the Midwest. I learned from Barbara could play all sides. So she was amazing.
How so? Because she's directing, thinking about this all at one time, and so
She's just brilliant.
piecing it together.
So she could play all sides. So she could befriend the people at Hormel. She could befriend the people on either sides of the union, the national union. And she could have conversations with them. And we didn't really do interviews. We mostly shot everything, with like how we shot.
Right.
And so it was pretty amazing to just watch her navigate all the people. And I think that's what I learned out of that, is that even though there were people that you didn't like or whatever your thoughts were, but there's still a lot of commonalities between all these folks. And that if you can talk to the commonality part, then you start to get somewhere. I mean, there's one scene in the film where, they go on strike, and what's the one thing that you can do that you'll lose all your friends if you're a union worker?
No, don't cross that picket line.
Cross the picket line.
Yeah.
So there's this group of guys, and these are like hardcore Midwestern white males, and they're sitting around talking and they're crying because it's like, my kid's working at McDonald's, you know, my wife is working here, and I'm just sitting home, and I got to go to work. And, you know, watching those guys drive off to go cross that picket line, you know, at minus 20 degree weather at, you know, 3:30 in the morning when they were going into work was heartbreaking. And then at the same time, you understand why other workers want to just, you know, destroy him. Because why are you killing us?
Exactly.
Right? And so it was a really, again, it showed me the thing I learned the most is that just like with your life, you know, how we've talked about stuff, there's all of these areas of gray areas where it's like in your life with Ed Martin, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Or is he both? Or, you know, like that idea of that you can't just have one side, that there's a place where you have to look at people in their totality. And I think documentary does that well. Well, I should say without Barbara, there'd be no Hoop Dreams. Because Barbara was a longitudinal filmmaker. She followed people for many years. So we filmed for like 4 or 5, 6 years.
So that 6 years you filmed really prepared you for Hoop Dreams.
Yeah, so when Hoop Dreams came up, just to give you a quick, you know, thing, when Steve James, who, if you guys, you know, don't know his work, people should go watch his work. He's awesome, and he's brilliant. And when Steve and I first talked, he was thinking about making a 30-minute film on one court, like one summer at an outdoor court on the west side of Chicago. And so as we started to go film, and this is what happens now, people don't do this anymore. We just went out and started filming. Now people research, they put decks together, they do all this crap, which we've been through. Instead of just going out there and start filming and find stories. And so we went out there and we found a guy who was a scout for Catholic League schools in Chicago. And he took us around to different courts. He introduced us to Arthur Agee, who's in the film. And then we met Arthur's family through him. And then we went out with Arthur to St. Joe's, where we met William Gates, the other character. And when the thing where Barbara paid off was when Arthur and his family, and they're really poor, and they are struggling. The coach says to Arthur and his folks, if you do what I say, I'm paraphrasing, but if you do what I say, I promise you, you're gonna have a scholarship to go play college basketball.
I will bet you a steak dinner in 4 years you'll be hearing from him. I don't even know anything about him.
And that was like, for both Steve and I, we have to follow that. Like, is that gonna really happen?
Yeah, he just made this young man a promise.
So in Chicago, Isaiah Thomas and Mark Aguirre, they were like the two basketball gods of that era. And Isaiah especially. And with Isaiah, I mean...
He's from Chicago. I mean, he was one of the best players ever.
Oh my God,
won the championship.
Probably the best street player I've ever seen.
Yeah, he and Mark Aguirre grew up together.
Right.
I mean,
they played each other in high school every year for the state championship. But, so anyways, you know, it was the first time I'd even seen real high school recruiting, which was Pingatore had a thing where he brought the kids out that he wanted to be there, and Isaiah shows up. And at that time, no Instagram, none of that stuff. No. To have like a pro player show up in...
You got me. Yeah, for me, that was one of the iconic kind of parts of the documentary was watching them play against their hero. It was slow motion. I remember Isaiah dribbling by. I remember the players looking at him.
And you see Arthur's grin.
You see
He's just the happiest he's ever been.
Yeah, and
like
I've been there before. I interviewed my brother David recently, and he was talking about Grant Hill giving him a jersey, and I see that look in his eye when I talk about certain players.
But what was great is that what Barbara and these longitudinal films do is the thing that the documentaries now don't do, and it's what we did for 10 years, which is they're always trying to tell a story, but not through the eyes of the people who are actually experiencing it. And that way people see everything represents more. Like you see, like in Hoop Dreams, like the mother's love of their kids. And you see that, and like the fact is at that time, the way that people were African Americans were portrayed on TV, you did not see that.
Let's talk about that.
Do you know what I
a
mean?
little bit, Peter.
And I was an outsider, granted, in their community, even though I only lived 6 blocks from William, but I was a total outsider because, you know, Chicago is a very segregated city. But at the same time, like a love of a mother for their kids, or the idea of attaining something bigger than you and trying to get out of something, that's sort of like, again, like I'm sort of drawn to the American dream, or what's left of it.
I had not seen a documentary telling the story of someone that I could relate to, that I had the same dream as, that had the same backyard, front porch, street as me, that went to a church just as small as mine, got to play against their hero and had that same look in their eye. When did you realize, first of all, when did you guys realize it has to be longer than 30 minutes, and then realize it has to be something special?
Well, that was that thing, we have to follow them. We didn't think. First of all, you have to understand that we did this all on our own. I mean, I had a camera and sound gear and all that stuff, so we could do it.
This looks like a production with a million people behind it.
There were literally at the most 3 of us on every shoot. And so it was very intimate. And also, it was different because people weren't, you know, now, like, I have a grandson. Every second of his life has been filmed. It was a big deal to get filmed, even for these kids. Like, and we had to sit them down and say, look, we're not filming you because we think you're going to be a pro basketball player. Because that was really important to us.
Wow, so tell me about that conversation.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, gaining their trust
because,
and
you know,
they're
8th and 9th graders, right?
Right.
And it's like they're thinking, oh my God, I mean, at that time, if someone's going to film me.
It must be guaranteed.
You went through that.
Right.
Like, all of a sudden, you were on TV when you were, what, 6th grade, 7th grade? And all of a sudden, the world changes. Well, they weren't going to be on TV yet, but because they weren't, you know, known. But at the same time, they thought because we were interested in them, that it must mean they're really good. And we were more interested in them, not like, do you make it to the NBA or not?
So what was that talk like when you broke that down to it? Did it break? Did they kind of say, wow, my dream is, this is
No,
not?
I think it was good because I think they honestly understood, even at that age, that, we were saying it's not like this is going to help you. We don't know when the film's going to come out. We don't have any money. You know, all this stuff. But, you know, people didn't have highlight tapes then.
No.
Like, we were able to cut highlight tapes for them.
Yeah.
You know, to show to coaches.
Teams didn't even tape their games then. I mean, who are you going to have tape it? I mean, it seemed
it was really, you know, back in the old school kind of days in that way. And so what was interesting was having that talk with them was William had the thing of a brother who, when I was younger, was probably the best high school player I'd ever seen in Chicago. He led the city in scoring for 3 years, and he was small, like 6'4", 6'5", and all he did was dunk.
And it seems that even when, you know, you got some very intimate moments that you can't hide on camera, and a few we're going to talk about. And one of them is that I didn't know what type of role his older brother was going to play in his life, because you could tell his older brother's like, come on, you can do more. And is that from a big brother standpoint? But then again, you see the brother there a little older, overweight, and he tries to dunk and he can't.
All those basketball dreams I had, they gone. All I see, all my dreams is in him now. I want him to make it so bad, I don't know what to do.
And I remember when he couldn't.
At the beginning of the film, he could.
Yeah, in
he
the
was
beginning.
still,
But 4 years later, you know, and watching his brother go through things, I didn't know if his brother was going to be a negative impact, a positive impact. I mean, it was so many characters you had. He
was an incredibly loving brother and wanted the best for his brother. He was also living his dreams through William. He knew how good William was. He didn't want William to make the same mistakes he made. And at the same time, I think for William, he bore that thing of being from a basketball legacy family. And I'm sure at some point you'll talk to your brothers about this. And wanting to succeed, you know, and what the pressure that meant, because everyone knew his brother. And I don't think his brother was thrilled with him going out of the city to play at a suburban high school. He wanted him to stay in the city. And you can tell all through the film, he's not happy with how William's being treated or coached or any of that stuff. But he was one of those, you know, he picked him up every day, he took him, he did whatever he had to do to help that kid. And then you had Arthur's family, where Arthur, you know, when you first meet him, he's this little kid, or seemingly. And I have to admit, my basketball IQ was not high enough like that scout to look at him and go, yeah, but to look at Arthur when he was that age, he literally watched him go up and down the court twice. He said, I'm going to take this kid out to that high school. He said, he's got a good handle, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know. So it was different. William was already like a man-child, and sort of probably more in the situation you were in, where people just assumed he would succeed.
Because he was big at a young age, yeah.
Small, I mean, he was a guard, but
yeah,
he
he's
was
a guard,
just,
but
he was, he, you know, and mature and that. And Arthur was like a younger kid with the dream. And that dream was a huge dream, you know, for him.
Yeah. I went to school with so many Arthurs because I saw Arthur go there at school. He reminded me of Kevin, one of my closest friends, and others, that I did not want to go to the prep school that I went to. I hated my mom, dad, teachers, my coach, everyone, because I just was in that place as a young teenager. You wouldn't let my friends come here. You think I'm just a hooper. That's why you let me, all these different things. But I had great people around me. And when I looked at Arthur in school, his personality, like laughing, getting in trouble, keeping everyone there, you know, that felt so good for me to watch in the midst of kind of knowing what happened when you're going back through it.
Well, even, I just want to say one thing, like with Arthur and William, I mean, when you asked me earlier, when did we know we had a film? I think for the first 2 years, we knew it was good, but they were both at the same school. Yeah. And it was interesting to see their trajectory.
And I didn't like the
it was more like,
which
it was more like,
but
are they going to play together?
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was that. And it was more fish out of water. It was two inner city kids at the suburban school. Yes. But then St. Joe's, Pingatore didn't think Arthur would be a good enough player. So what they did was they didn't like kick him out of school technically, but what they did was they cut his scholarship. So the parents couldn't pay it. So Arthur was forced to go.
Oh, we all got that point.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no,
so
we all
it
got
was
that point, which made
in other
us,
words, Pingatore, all he cared about was winning the state championship. He was not. He basically would be like a player being forced into the portal today, except there was no monetary gain.
Another one walks out the door, another one comes in the door. That's what it's all about.
And so, you know, he had to go back to his neighborhood, and Arthur, for all the stuff he went through, if you think about coming, his neighborhood on the west side was about as badass as you could live in. All these kids, and especially like gangbangers, all that stuff, they laid off of him because, man, he had a ticket. You know, he had, like, as we called it in Chicago, he had the basketball pass. You know, like, everyone left him alone. But then when he came back to Marshall, everybody knew what that meant. It meant he failed out there.
And so now,
and then all of a sudden, he's a target.
Yeah. From protection to a target.
He's got to really prove himself all over again, which he did. If he had stayed at St. Joe's and Pingatore had allowed him to mature, they probably would have won a state championship with the two of them together. So Arthur was sort of one of the pieces they didn't have. But just to see that resilience and stuff, and that break was where the story just went totally different. I think I've told you this, but we went to shoot him in a summer, you know how they used to have high school summer games? It was summer league, but you played with your high school team. The coach wasn't allowed to coach you. He just sat up in the bleachers, and like the team captain would coach. It was all ridiculous. But the game got canceled and William was there, and William just started playing around on the court and doing these insane dunks. And this is when he was at the end of his sophomore year, and that was the first time that Steve and I looked at each other and said, you know, he could go pro. I mean, there was just a fluidity to him and all of that stuff that was just mind-boggling. And his shot, everything. And then it was like, you know, injury, boom. And to him, he really thought that was the end of his life. I mean, you know how distraught. It was also the first time that his mother really opened up to us. It was because we were there for the surgery and we were there for his recovery. Once he got injured and we were there and we didn't care. It was like William said, so you're gonna stop following me. We're like, no, we're in. We wanted to see how you do. We're with you. And that was sort of where everything started to happen. Same thing with Arthur leaving St. Joe's. When he left St. Joe's, it's like, so you're not gonna follow me anymore. So it was like, no, you don't get it. We don't care. Basketball is great. It's a great part of the story. We care about you guys and seeing your lives.
Because we met during the filming of Hoop Dreams, and those thoughts, you know.
And people should know that when we met, William went to the Nike All-American camp, which was a miracle in itself because he had had 2 knee operations by that time. And if you remember from the film, he actually hurt his knee again while he was there.
And walking off the court, that was by itself.
There was every basketball coach in the country of every major program at that camp. And they've all seen you play. But when you would walk on the court, all the coaches would just go to that court like this. Because you were the #1 player. I mean, you were mythical in that way. You know what I mean? To the other kids that you were playing, like William and all those other folks, you were it. I mean.
And they were it to me because they were friends with Juwan. And
right.
I don't think
and Juwan,
people,
yeah.
Because Juwan introduced it. It wasn't like, here's the kids from Hoop Dreams, because they weren't the kids from Hoop Dreams.
Right.
Here's some other knuckleheads from where I lived, you know? And
William and Juwan, you know, I would say when William was healthy, they were like touted, I mean, different positions, but touted as equals, you know what I mean? In terms of like how the city looked at them.
And so being behind that camera, when you see the coach make them a promise, you do it this way. Being behind the camera when you see him shake his knee and walk off, you know, is it like that moment in the wild where you want to help, you know, that helpless deer getting mauled by a lion? Like, what do you think to yourself, even though this is really good, and you really don't have the right to stop anything because you're not his parents, you don't have the right to say anything even though you're seeing it. Like, how do you handle that? Like, oh, we're getting a really great movie here, but we're getting a movie because this kid's life is going to be changed forever because he's with this freaking coach that's terrible. People don't believe in him. He's back here, you know.
A documentary like following people like that, unfortunately, a lot of times life does not go how you want it to go. And it's painful. I mean, you know, those kids are like family kids, you know.
Yeah.
But they're family to me.
Yeah, you talk about how much you love them all the time.
Yeah. You know, we didn't care about anything except those kids and those families. The coaches, one of the greatest people I ever met was Luther Bedford, who was Arthur's coach at Marshall, who is what, to me, was sort of like your coach at Country Day, even though he was inner city. But he was a guy who, what he cared about was the kids. He really was. He didn't recruit because his thing was, why would I recruit? Look at my neighborhood. I can help kids in my neighborhood. I don't need to go out of my neighborhood.
Now, was he the scout with the whistle that drove through the neighborhood?
No, Bedford was.
Talk about both the coaches and the scouts.
There's Pingatore, who was like this guy who was like, sort of like the Bobby Knight of, you know, high school basketball.
He coached Isaiah, so whatever he says goes in my mind to little
all
kids.
All that stuff,
That's
right?
Him. Right.
And you know, for sure, Bobby Knight was all over William until injuries. That's where Pingatore wanted him to go. And people forget that at that time, when you're being recruited for college, I don't know if this happened with you, but at least with William, all the letters went pretty much through the coach.
Oh, yeah.
There weren't AAU coaches, and so the letters were sent to the high school, to the coach, and then given to the players. And so it was just such a different era. There was this guy, Bob Gibbons.
Oh, yeah.
Since there wasn't any way to visually see people, he wrote about them, and he had a newsletter that pretty much every coach in the country, you know, had to subscribe to because he was looking for talent. He's at the Nike All-American camp, and this guy from North Carolina evaluating all these players. It was just a really sort of crazy world.
But you're watching him get hurt at Nike camp, like, I just can't imagine. He had already had 2 knee injuries.
Yeah.
And you're filming something that needs to be
was heartbreaking.
Dramatic, and then at the same time, and let me go to my favorite worst part. And shout out to both of these young men, because they were heroes of mine from watching that. When I saw you go into the park and you're recording, is that Arthur there?
Yeah.
You record him at the park.
With his dad playing ball?
And he is reconciling one. Arthur has to keep going through this thing where his dad is on drugs, not on drugs. His dad comes home. I love it at the end when he's at church with his sweater on. You could tell he kind of healed. But you had a moment in which, and this is what I mean about your intention. You showed some of the worst things ever, in my opinion. And it was because the story allowed it. It's because the story needed those parts to be told, and it humanized, it made me understand that much more what Arthur is going through. And the part I always tell you is that he's on the court, he's shooting, he has his shirt off, he has a silly personality. So when he calmed down back then, I would go over serious. And it's a part, I don't even know if he sees, but he's shooting. His father doesn't have a shirt on, and I know he's about to buy some crack from the guy that's behind him.
That was the first, actually, that was like within 3 or 4 days of Arthur being able to dunk.
Get out of here.
He hadn't seen,
So talk a little bit about that scene.
So he had a neighborhood basketball, like a grammar school, Delano, and that was the court he grew up playing on. And so he had just gotten to that point where he could dunk, and he was showing off to his friends about it, and you saw that he had a push T-shirt on, which was Jesse Jackson. He played like in a summer league, a Jesse Jackson summer league. And, you know, he's dunking, and then he sees his dad. He hadn't seen his dad in months. His dad had been out of the house, was addicted to drugs. And he sees his dad, and it's sort of like watching him, how do I react to him? Because he loves his dad, but he's also angry with his dad.
Yeah.
And he also he didn't know where he was. He didn't really, I don't think he knew where he was on the streets, you know, at that time. And that basketball court had become a place where people were, you know, buying and selling drugs a lot. And so he basically, you know, it's like we actually filmed his dad going back to buy drugs. You see Arthur wanting to show off and dunk for him to get pride from his dad. His dad, who was a very good basketball player, tried and couldn't do it, and that's when he walks off and gets drugs. And then you just see that shot from behind where Arthur's just watching his dad walk into the, you know, sort of the depths of the school.
That broke my heart.
Yeah, and that was totally us on a random day, just being there. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like set up. It was just, that's what happened. And funny story, which is when the film was done, unlike journalists, one of the things we do is we always show the film to the participants in the film before we, you know, finish it. Because we want to make sure, like, these guys were kids, it's their family and all that. We want to make sure if there's stuff that we told wrong, that we change it. If there's stuff that they really want out of it, that we have that discussion with them, why we kept it in, why we didn't, or let's get rid of it. There were things that we took out of Hoop Dreams after having those discussions. And so when Arthur's dad watched that cut, we were really worried because he had really turned his life around at that point.
He showed that at the end.
You know, he was really starting to turn his life around. And we were worried that he would want to cut that scene out. You know, because we never showed, that's the other thing. The only thing we ever showed the kids was basketball footage. We never showed them or the families any footage of what we filmed. So this is the first time they're actually looking at.
Over 4 years, I'm sure they forgot. I mean, it's incredible.
So his dad is watching this and he goes, I don't even remember this. You got that? Like he was, you know, he was that messed up. And we were like, oh, please. And he was like, yeah, people need to see that.
Wow.
You know, like, which was pretty amazing. And he was more amazed at the fact that I was like that, like being able to just visually see it, which was really, and I think Bo always knew, which is Arthur's dad, always knew that the film could maybe play in a different way to show some of the crazy things that he went through in his life.
People did need to see that. And people also...
And need to see the resilience that you can come back.
And another thing people needed to see, in my opinion, was the addressing of a stereotype or the breaking of a stereotype.
And there are a lot of stereotypes in every documentary films because stereotypes exist in
everywhere.
real life. You made a film about me, there'd be a ton of stereotypes that I fit.
Oh yeah, and this is a stereotype about men though, not black or white men, and that is when you're chasing a dream, if you decide to get married or if you get someone pregnant in the meantime, that your life is over. And you're definitely not gonna stick together. And I remember the narrative was then, why is he doing that? Kathy's beautiful, but they're never gonna stay together. These are two, dumb young kids. Oh my God, you're never gonna get anything out of that.
40 years later.
And so 40 years later, I'd like to talk about that stereotype. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, they've never been apart.
Since they got married in the documentary.
No, I mean, since she was before she was pregnant, obviously, but they've never been apart. I mean, they're like, I wish my marriage was as good as their marriage, let's put it that way.
Right.
And never been apart.
Did you think
they
that
loved
then?
each other? And William didn't tell us about it till like the baby was born.
I'm sure he had enough stress.
Hi, Daddy. Hi, baby. How you doing? How you doing? I love you. I love you.
I can't remember if we took it out or left it in the film. We might have taken it out, but Pingator, his coach was telling him, you got to ditch this woman.
Oh yeah.
You got to get rid of you. This is going to kill you. Your career is done.
Your life is over.
Your life is over.
Yeah.
All this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like he loved Catherine. I mean, this was. It's hard for me to describe Cabrini, but it was a really intense neighborhood, and let's just say he went through a bunch of incidents where I think they felt as though we love each other, let's have a kid. And again, he wouldn't let us, instead of the fact that he always was, from day one, an incredible father. He was young. I mean, there was that crazy scene in the kitchen where he's talking about, well, if I'm at the state championship, what's more important, the state championship or the pregnancy, being there for the kid being born. But I mean, that's youth.
Yeah.
I mean,
young and dumb.
you know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, it was such a, as I said, he was really mature for his age. And he took on a lot of responsibility at a really young age, as well as all of those pressures. And he made it through, graduated college, was a good college basketball player, all that. It went to the wrong school with a bad coach. If he had gone somewhere else, I think he would have had it. But he went there because he was honoring his brother. Because his brother went to Marquette, so William went to Marquette.
But for them to be married this many years later is incredible. I mean, one, it was a brilliant film, and thank you and Steve for bringing that to the pop culture. I mean, to me, that gave the Fab Five momentum. UNLV, like you said, it was that culture. Jordan, it was like everything was a part of each other's stories at that time because we were all chasing the same elusive dream.
And I'll tell you something really funny. I gotta tell you something funny, which is, so we're at the New York premiere of the film. I had died and gone to heaven. Because to me, I didn't care about Sundance, any of that. New York Film Festival, closing night, we're the first documentary to ever close the festival. And no one wins there. Getting in is winning. Avery Fisher Hall, sold out. Yes. Spike Lee does a dinner for us and the families. He introduces the film, and it's just, your parents are still alive, like all the people that you love are still alive, and you're there, and the families are there, and all this stuff. And, you're sitting there, and it's this incredible thing, and then afterwards we walk out, And William and Arthur start telling us, well, you know, we've known each other since we were in 2nd grade. And we, and they were playing us so much.
Stuff they didn't want to share. Oh, that's hilarious.
Like we would go hang out with each other on weekends sometimes. And,
that's
you know,
hilarious.
and it's different, you know, because we would have known with Instagram and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the only way we could find them, at the end of the film, beepers came out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
the only way we could find them was to go to them. It was so funny. You know,
that is
so
hilarious.
like you can't tell, you know, it's
That's
like,
hilarious.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
They were talking like, so what are they going to come to your house today?
Right, exactly. But that actually makes me like them even more.
When at Sundance, when the film came out, and this is going to sound old, but Ebert and Siskel was a television show. They were the two big
No. They
reviewers.
said this is not, they
were the
wanted
two
it to
big
be,
reviewers.
They said
Disney.
this was the film
Yeah.
of the year.
So, but they did it before we had a distributor and before we played at Sundance, and they had never done that. They only reviewed distributed films by companies.
Wow.
So when we went to Sundance, we were kind of like the Beatles. We felt like the Beatles. But what was wild was no one wanted the documentary. They all wanted to remake it.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it was really interesting to see the studios react. So one of the things that Spike did that was really great, and that I will forever be, you know, thankful for, which is we realized that the families, I mean, we had no idea ever that this film would ever be see the light of day. So the families could make a decent amount of money if they sold their story rights to get the film made. And so who could we trust with those story rights? Because we didn't profit from that. That goes all to the families, right? So Spike did it, and with a nod, wink, that
I won't cannibalize the film.
no, I'm not gonna really make it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like,
Yeah, I'm signing them, Peter.
I'm gonna get somebody to write a script, all that stuff, but your film's gonna come out and see the light of day. And then the family's got the payoff.
But that's
of
awesome, 'cause that took
is how
thoughtfulness,
awesome is that
effort.
he did that.
And
I mean, really pretty amazing. And plus, at that time, I am a Spike Lee cheerleader in the fact of what he went through to make films. So we're the same age, same era, same school. What he went through to make films, to have the audacity to fight Hollywood the way that he did, because they would say audacity, and to be able to get the films made that he did, if you went out to lunch with a studio executive and they'd say like, so are you thinking of, you know, selling Hoop Dreams to somebody and blah, blah, blah. We knew already sort of that we were working on this thing with Spike, right? And they would always say, I hope you don't sell it to him. and because they did not like the idea of a black male filmmaker coming in and being as powerful as he was and telling them that they're wrong about everything that they do. I mean, you know, being able to get a studio, even though he had to beg, borrow money at the end, all this stuff to put Malcolm X out. I mean, think about that. I mean, pretty mind-blowing.
Peter, when I talk to you about this all the time, I'm sure you have it in your archives, but it was so incredible because when I look at Hoop Dreams, you show a picture of me in there. And because we don't have a lot of pictures of ourselves then in areas, maybe playing the game, but I know I was paying attention because I know when you were filming me who I was watching. And I always look at that so intently because
well, you know that pizza party in the room, Jawan's there?
I don't even remember that. I was talking about in the lecture.
Oh, in the lecture with Spike, yeah.
So I remember Spike, and we all had Nikes on, and it's a Nike camp, and he's with Nike.
He is Nike at that point, right? He was
commercial, and he's like, if y'all let this company control you, you are fools. If you let this company tell you who you are idiots. They don't care about you. None of these people love you. And I'm sitting there like, wait, Spike, you know what I mean? And I remember—
You're making the commercials, right?
Yeah.
You have to realize that nobody cares about you. You're black, you're a young male, all you're supposed to do is deal drugs and mug women. The only reason why you're here, you can make their team win. If their team wins, these schools get a lot of money. This whole thing is revolving around money.
And I remember thinking, how brave is he to tell us here this? Because he's like, yeah, I'm making this money, but listen, I am who I am. And they're going to, even Dick Vitale coming in there, and it was just amazing that, you know, that's when I remember our time of getting together was when, you know, Spike was giving those. And I think what you saw was, I hope you always
It blew my mind because one of the ways that during Hoop Dreams or any of the documentaries that I made money was to either be a cinematographer on or direct commercials. And so, like, commercials just popped during that era. I mean, like, and Spike was a big part of that, huge pop. I mean, where all of a sudden budgets went from like one level to like millions, you know, it was just crazy. And I think when you see him, what I thought was so great about that, I mean, I learned a lot from that speech, which was, he was just playing them. I mean, yeah, he loves basketball. He loved Nike product. I mean, I don't think that's false.
No.
I mean, but he's also like, this helps me make my films. I'm gonna do this, I'm using them, they're not using me.
Yeah, no.
You know, that thing, which I think is a lesson for anybody in any business you're in, you know, is that lesson.
I'm definitely excited about my new book. It's taken a long time to write it. I wrote it because I'm grateful and I'm thankful. I want to celebrate a successful journey. I want to honor my parents and the village that raised me.
We call a timeout. Michigan doesn't have any.
I want to acknowledge the obstacles that I had to overcome. It damn sure wasn't easy. And I want to share how I got over it. Because his support for your film, I think, speaks so much for people. And that's why I wanted to address the fact of you reconciling, talking to the family, because you guys did it with such thoughtfulness and care that you showed some embarrassing things. And a lot of us who knew family or people in those positions really thought you did it with dignity as much as you could.
We tried.
You know, with that. And I always wanted to commend you for that. It wasn't
Thanks.
a hit piece on these two kids trying to make it. It was really, you really put it in the frame of an American dream. And I feel most filmmakers do not put Black people's plight in the narrative of the American dream. They put it in the narrative of, oh, woe is me, or this is gonna happen. But they never put it in, because when you put it in the American dream, everyone can look at themselves and say, wow, I'm chasing something. How difficult would that be to navigate with all those other things around?
But that's why I was always so interested in your story. Your story is the American dream. I mean, think about your dad, when we were in Mississippi with your dad, and your dad is showing you how to pick cotton. And you think about, and we go around the town, you know, in Tunica, and we go with your aunt, or great aunt, who was struggling.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how she had to pick 100 pounds of cotton bag a day.
2 days after she had a baby.
Yeah. And your dad's talking about going out into the field right after his mom died, or father?
No, mom died.
Mom. Yeah. And all of that, it's not like that was long ago.
No.
And then the story of going north to Detroit and how your dad got there. And then your mom, I mean, they're like, you know, if you'd say, oh, here's somebody with 2 master's degrees marrying your dad, you know, which I think it was 6th grade education until he got his GED, right? I mean, it's unbelievable story, your story.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think they were, tell me if I'm right, but in my mind, they were never really clued into what the basketball dream is.
No.
They found it because it happened.
Yeah.
You just happened.
It was part of the process. They say, okay, let's go.
Right. But even that, like all of a sudden, here are these folks too who have a golden ticket, and it's like the golden ticket is also, what comes with that ticket is not easy to navigate. For you, for your brothers and sister, you know, and for your family. And I mean, your mom, like talking to your mom, she's always been so honest with us. Like, you know, like those things like she would get phone calls once you started to get famous. She would get phone calls from a relative. And they'd always be like, how's Chris? How's Chris? And she'd go, I have other children, right?
Right,
like,
exactly.
you know, I mean, there was this whole thing of how you navigate that world. And then being in the middle of that whole, again, that whole, to me, really amazing cultural revolution that was going on. And I've told you this a million times, but when I first started doing commercials, I would go out to the, you know, go to Wyoming to do a commercial or whatever. And you'd see kids, you know, they would be dressed in Wrangler blue jeans and cowboy boots and, you know, like look like that. And then 2 years later, after all this Jordan and you guys and all that, you come back and they're all dressed in Nikes on skateboards with, you know, like, it was like a totally different world, listening to hip hop. Like, it was wild, you know, the change that you would see community to community, which is why I think, you know, you were vilified in so many ways too. You know, you were a threat. You were a godsend to some part of America and a huge threat to another part of America.
And when you're in that way, you need people that are the same way to understand their walk, or those that understand what you're going through. And someone that I've always admired and was lucky to have some semblance of a relationship times with was, he had many names. His last name was Nelson. You could call him the artist Nelson. Maybe you could call him Prince Nelson. He was an incredible hooper, a really great thinker. And
well, he hooped in platform shoes.
Yeah, but he was cold. That's Charlie Murphy, you know. But I spoke with him on a couple occasions about the Fab Five, our lives, my life. And I'm not going to put this on you, and I'm not saying he told me this, but I heard it from someone that you were in the studio with him.
Yeah,
right around the time of Hoop Dreams.
Hoop Dreams. So Ben Sidran, who did the score, he's a jazz player. He was in the original Steve Miller Band, like Born in the USA, those kind of songs. He also taught all over, musicians all over the place, and so he had this deep connection to the Minneapolis funk scene.
Okay.
And he's the old guy, right? In that world. But like, he always recorded at Paisley Park. He had guys in his band, Ricky Peterson and Paul Peterson, who were part of Prince's bands or played on Prince's label. And so we were able to do the score at Paisley, which was wild.
That's incredible.
You know what I mean? And just the whole experience of it, and using not only his guys, but also guys that were in Prince's entourage and all that stuff, because they so admired Ben.
You didn't get a chance to go to the secret shows at night.
I did.
You got a chance to go?
I got to go to a secret show.
Was it incredible?
It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen as a musician.
Oh man.
So he basically had a film studio, Paisley Park, so a studio. He set up his entire live stage show. So he had a lighting director, all this stuff doing it, and you would get invited via like a text, or, you know, I can't remember what the
secret
and
code.
It was sort of like, be there at midnight. And you would go in, and he would just come out, and you never knew who he had with. The night I was there, he had Larry Graham, Shaka Khan, who was the other, Maceo Parker.
So this is like a pickup
basketball game. But think about that,
here,
though,
man.
not like you're playing like in a studio or something. Full set, full stage show.
Because he's Prince.
And he's got like every, you know, he's got all the dancers. He's got his rapper, Tony M at the time. He's got all these folks. And they are just, and he's riding them like James Brown. Like,
so
it's
is it
like
rehearsal? Or is
it's just, he loved to play, man. This dude was amazing. He was like one of those guys, 9 in the morning in the studio. I mean, I don't know how many tracks that dude had.
Right.
You know, like, he looked at music as work. You know, like, he loved it, but it was work. And he loved to play live. And he would come in, and these shows were, you know, the show I saw was just insane. You know, like he would just like, you know, it was like how James Brown used to run his band.
Mm-hmm.
He would just like, right? No, but I mean, like just click his finger and they would all step into form. This is the tightest thing I've ever seen. And then he would just like point Maceo, and then bam, you know, Ricky. You know, it was wild, like to see how what the command he had, and also people just, I don't think he was playing everything. Like he might play an improvisational jazz song, he might play, it didn't matter. Just the breadth of his music was pretty wild to see. So yeah, I was really lucky to see that. I also got to see him, he did a residency in Vegas, and I got to see him there, and he played just a jazz show.
Just a jazz show?
Yeah, he didn't tell anybody what he was gonna play, so you never knew what you were gonna get. You'd go there and, but yeah, he was pretty amazing.
That's cool, and that he would support. I mean, you think about it, I mean, it's over 30 years?
Oh.
With Hoop Dreams? Is it
35? 7 or something?
37 years. That's incredible. And you've been able to, you know, do so many films. And when I think of films that you've been doing, I think of two. And I want to talk about Death House Door.
Sure. I love that film.
Can you explain what it was about, and then let me know how the hell you found that story?
So we found that story sort of how you see it in the film, is what I'm saying. I wish more people would just take a camera out and go.
And just go.
Which was 2 Chicago Tribune journalists told us about a guy who was wrongfully convicted, Carlos DeLuna, in Texas, and put to death. And they were doing a story on, was this guy wrongfully convicted? At the same time, I had done another film called Deadline that I produced that was about the death penalty in Chicago. There was this rogue cop in Chicago who put like 15 people on death row illegally. They weren't even involved in the murders. And it's a story about the governor who eventually he went to jail for something else, but he stopped the death penalty in Illinois, got these people off of death row, got them released. It's a really interesting story. But a lot was going on about the death penalty then, because it was banned for a while and then it got reinstated in the late 90s. And when they reinstated it, the states went to town, you know, that had it. And so anyways, DeLuna was this guy who the Tribune reporters were sure that he was wrongfully, you know, convicted and wrongfully put to death. So we went down with them and started following them as they were doing the investigation of DeLuna, like who, you know, the private investigators, the people who were on the case, his sister, all this stuff. And then one of the characters was a guy named Reverend Pickett. Now, Steve and I, 2 Chicago guys, right? I'm Jewish.
I was a little cynical, maybe.
I'm Jewish.
Okay.
No. But and Reverend Pickett is this minister in Texas who his job was, he was hired by the state of Texas to spend the last 24 hours of a prisoner's life with them before they were put to death. So basically, this is a horrible way of putting it, it was in a way to subdue the prisoners, make them feel comfortable enough to be able to get on a gurney, be tied down, rolled into a room, and accept their fate. And he was very pro-death penalty when he started doing this, which is strange for a minister, right? I mean, you know, but he had, his grandfather was murdered. He had all kinds of, he's Texan, you know. And so when we went with the Tribune people, since he was with Carlos DeLuna the last 24 hours of his life, what the Tribune wanted to know was, or the paper, the journalists, did he confess on his deathbed? That's what they wanted to know, because if he confessed, if he said, yeah, I killed that person.
And if this preacher verifies it, we're all off the hook.
No, the story's done.
That's what I'm saying.
They have no story.
Yeah, yeah.
They have no story, right?
And this
so
guy
the
is
only
innocent,
thing they
yeah.
care about, they don't necessarily, I shouldn't say they didn't care about Pickett's story.
The only thing
I
they
mean,
were
he's
searching
in it.
for.
He's in
Right.
it. But they have to have that knowledge for them to continue on. We were immediately intrigued by Pickett because here's this guy who had been in the death house, I think over 180 to 200 times and 97 of those times people were put to death. So what does that mean on a guy? You know, just
Yeah, what is
right,
his 24 hours like? How do you go home?
so,
How do you treat your family? Like, that's a whole
and
nother
so
story.
then what we found out is that, and it was amazing, he literally just showed them to us. It wasn't like we had a relationship or anything. I think he was just ready.
Yeah, that's a hell of a burden.
Yeah, burden.
He's like, yeah, somebody.
So, you know how in old school we all had cassette tape and we had them in boxes,
Yeah.
you know, in the car?
Yeah.
He pulls out these boxes and he opens them and there's a tape. It looked like a cemetery, but it was a tape for every person that he was with who died. So he lived literally across the street from the death house in Texas, in the town he was
He's
in.
like the Grim Reaper almost. I mean, like.
Yeah, and he would come home at night and he couldn't burden his wife
Right.
or his kids, right? So he would go down and talk about that night on these cassette tapes.
Oh.
And some of the times, they're really cold. Like, you know, in other words, like, this is a vicious human being, this is
Right.
what he did.
Right,
They
right.
might be 2 minutes,
Right,
3
right,
minutes.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Other times, they're things like really amazing little stories about somebody that he got to know, because they didn't want him to be like their normal minister. They wanted him to be separate from them until that last day. So he's telling stories about them or whatever. So the 33rd person that he witnessed death was this guy, Carlos de Luna. And on the tape, he says, I don't think this guy did it.
On the tape.
On the tape. And so there's 97
But how do you even carry that
stories.
burden? I hate to even, but how do you even carry
Well,
an
and
innocent
that
man?
changed, but so what the
keep
film
going.
became was, one, following this, now the Tribune can go full-blown into following the wrongful conviction of
Yes.
Carlos de Luna, what it meant to his family, everything. And then, and how they screwed it up, how the people in Harris County in Houston screwed up the whole thing. And we also could show Reverend Pickett changing from a pro-death penalty person to somebody who became, somebody who was against the death penalty, speaking out against it, and really on a mission to explain to people that you can transform yourself.
Because even one of these deaths are wrong. Before he said, I need all of them to
Well,
go.
and then he started to realize, who knows, right?
Exactly.
Like once you have one, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and again, so good documentaries have what I call like gray area, right? I mean, the Hoop Dreams gray area in my mind is that if you're watching that film, I don't care who you are. Hopefully, if you have kids, you feel for those families like you would for your own.
Yes. That's
You
the
want
way
to do
to
the
do it,
best
yes.
for your kids. You want to, you know, and you can discuss that.
Yes.
You know, with Death House Door, that gray area was, okay, so you're never going to change people really who are pro-death penalty and against it. So what's the middle ground? Well, the middle ground is there's a guard that we filmed, and he was in the death house as much as Pickett. So who puts these people to death? Doctors don't do it. Nurses don't do it. So the people who put them to death are everyday citizens who work in the Texas correction system, all that stuff. Is that a fair thing to do to a prison guard who's getting paid 40 grand a year? To say, oh, by the way, tonight, you know, at midnight, you got to, you know, be the person who hits a plunger.
Right, and do you have any mental health
And what
help for me
how
after
do
I
you think
kill
that
this man?
weighs on people, right? I mean, and this one guard had been with Pickett for every time he was in the death house almost. And I mean, just the whole concept of, is that what our society should do? Is like, should we be saying this is okay? I mean, maybe we should be thinking about we're having citizens who have nothing to do with any of this. And again, I'm not saying there weren't people who did horrible
But still,
things.
a citizen's
or-
not prepared to kill someone because of what they've done. That's not
for their
like
job,
a natural
part of their
skill.
job thing.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So, I mean, to us, that was what was great. There's a film where you could actually get people to talk about it. And then you could also talk about the difference between a documentary film and journalism. Because we were following journalists, so you could see how journalists really work. But at the same time, we were telling a different story about the exact same folks with the journalists in it, sort of as a documentary group would. And that was at the time when we're in this weird stage now where there isn't much, I don't know, what do you call it, trusted journalism on any side. You know, and so there's been this weird thing where a lot of times people think documentaries are news, you know, or they play it like news, and we're not, you know? And it's kind of weird. We've got into this weird place with documentaries where there aren't many good ones in my mind. I mean, there are a lot of great films, I don't mean it like that, but the ones that are being bought and that people see are true crime, you know, or different kinds of sort of documentary-ish reality shows. If you want to make a ton of money, the greatest thing you could ever have is a celebrity who committed a crime. That would sell in a minute. You know, so it's hard to get that kind of stuff, good stuff out there. You know, that's about social issue or about hard topics or whatever. And one of the things that was always weird about Hoop Dreams for Steve and I was that a lot of like academics wrote that we were like one of the starts of reality TV, which is very untrue. There was the MTV stuff and all that.
No.
But you know what I'm saying, and we never looked at that as
Right.
I mean.
Right, the scripted reality series, you didn't want credit for that.
No. But you know what I'm saying, like that idea, again, if you think about what that is, reality TV, I mean, it's scripted, it's all that stuff, and it's, you know, produced and all that. It's still technically following people longitudinally over a period of time.
Man, and you know, when you talk about things that need to be seen, there is
so many good films out, by the way. I didn't mean to say that. I just feel like
you
people
said the
don't
films
get
that were purchased.
Like
so.
No Other Land is a film, for instance, I think everyone should see, and it's about the West Bank and the Palestinian issue in the West Bank in Israel.
No Other Land.
And yeah, it won the Academy Award. It's never been released in the U.S.
So let's talk about
because they don't want to show the picture of what Israel is doing to these folks. And it's a story, it's really a buddy picture about an Israeli journalist and a Palestinian man who's an activist who become friends. And they start documenting the story together. And it's an amazing film. And you see the atrocity of what's going down. And I may be Jewish, but that doesn't mean that I believe in what a country does.
When you're
know what
a
I'm saying?
filmmaker, it's almost like you're just human walking around.
You're just
You've
human,
seen all
yeah,
the
you're just
stories.
human. And so, but this film won the Academy Award, and it didn't get released in the US. And it's like, it's ridiculous. Like it's the kind of film that people should see because it would be a way for people to understand the situation when you're listening, would understand the situation from the eyes of two everyday people who are living it.
Which is what
not
you
from
explained
Netanyahu
earlier.
or this or whatever.
And you explained earlier your style of filmmaking is you always shoot through the eyes of the person.
Yeah.
Which you did in
We
Hoop
try.
Dreams and you try. And
Yeah. So when I got the opportunity to make Vietnam Long Time Coming, basically what it was is Vietnam was closed to the US till 1997. And then they regained relations which is long after the war was over. And we brought back the first group of vets to Vietnam. And they did and it was through a thing called World Team Sports.
I was going to ask, whose idea was it to
World Team
bicycle
Sports.
1,000 miles across?
So this is this thing that I love about sports. So this was this organization that decided that we can help people come together if they do something together. And what are those kinds of things? It's in sports. You can do things together in sports. So we had all these vets, and they went with Viet Cong soldiers. So folks that they...
Wait, hold on. You had all these vets and they what?
U.S. vets.
Right.
And then they went with an equal number of Viet Cong vets, and they did a bike ride from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, depending what era you're from. And it was wild because these vets coming over, it had been like, so let's say the war ended in 72, 73, or a little later maybe, but so it's 20 years.
Right.
So, but for a lot of these vets, it was the last time they had seen because they were blinded there. It was the last time they had legs or arms, or, you know, and some were just normal, okay, but, and you had different eras of the war too. So you had guys who joined really early, like 64, 65, so it was very gung-ho. And then you had the drafted folks who didn't really have a choice and didn't, you know, were off. And going back to that world, you know, was really wild. And so we made a conscious decision not to show any footage of the war, that the war would be what was going on with these people then.
The war was today in their
Today
head,
in their heads,
yes.
about, because everybody's seen Vietnam War footage, a ton of it.
Yes.
So
Probably
we
more than
wanted
any other war.
Yeah, so we wanted people, World War II and Vietnam,
Yeah.
you know, and we wanted people to not think about that, but think about what these guys have been through on both sides. So if you think you come over as an American and the Viet Cong soldiers, the first time they meet, it's sort of like, nice to meet you, all that, but hey man, you came into our country, that's how it goes, right? They had no guilt. There's no guilt. Whereas the Americans are struggling. Vietnam was a war that our country has struggled with forever. So you see these soldiers struggling. And so you have some of them who are really proud of the service that they did and really, you know, gung-ho. And then you also have these soldiers who did horrible things and saw horrible things and got injured and all this stuff.
And Peter,
and they're traveling together with these folks.
Yeah.
And
so they were traveling with those that
together. So as a sport, like, is just this thing over a period of about a month. They're a team. So they had to help, like if there's a mountain, they all, and some of them were on, you know,
no
bikes.
man left behind.
Nobody left behind. So sort of like recreating sort of an event for them that's sort of like going on a mission, right?
With the
and then
like
a lot of them,
remember,
forgiveness. Like they didn't have legs, so they're on like cycle, I don't know what you call them, but you know, for folks, for disabled folks, or blind people riding in tandems and, you know, all this stuff. And like George, who was blind, he walked off the plane and he just turned to me and goes, man, the smell, I just know this smell. Like, you know, like, you know.
Oh.
And then, so you had this one guy, Dan, who was a photographer, lived in Iowa. He lost his leg and he's in this meeting and he's telling the other US soldiers that it's really weird for him to be there because once he went home from the war, he didn't go to vet halls, he didn't talk to soldiers at all or anything. So what's wild is he then, before they had the really fancy prosthetic, you know, stuff, he ran marathons. And so one of the other guys on the Viet Cong side also ran marathons, and his leg that was made was like primitive because the Vietnamese didn't really deal yet with disabilities, but seeing these guys bond using sports was really wild. I mean, and it was an amazing experience. And so Dan actually set up for this guy to come back to the States, and he got a new leg, like a modern day leg, and they ran the New York Marathon together.
You won a DGA and an Emmy for that.
Yeah.
That was some hard work.
It was a good film. And it was great because I made it with my mentors, from Cartenquin. It was the three of us made it. So it was really, that was like, you know, one of those great experiences where you get to make a film with the people that you know, like me making a film with you is similar. In the sense of somebody you really admire and you're making a film, same thing.
I love your stories. I love your stories of working with Marvin Gaye, filming videos. I love your stories of, matter of fact, okay, please, just one story you gotta tell me before we get into it. Please tell me the story of Michael Jordan. Please tell me the story when you were filming, well, one of the many Michael Jordan commercials you were, because...
It wasn't a commercial, it was a feature film.
But when I look back, I saw you film like all the Jordan Chevy commercials, and I YouTubed all of it. And I'm laughing because it's
Not
back
all,
in the day,
but
like
a pretty fair amount of
pretty
them.
fair, yeah. You know, because I used to walk like Jordan, try to talk like Jordan, and all that good stuff. And so, tell me that story that about him, the film you were doing at the old Chicago Stadium.
Yeah, so I was doing a film called Blink that starred Madeline Stowe and Laurie Metcalf. And so she's still around doing a lot of stuff, and she was in Roseanne, so she was a huge star then, right?
She was a sister?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
a huge star.
yeah.
And Roseanne was the #1 show at that time. So, and Michael Apted directed it. It was a really cool film. And so one of the scenes is Madeline Stowe's blind, and Laurie Metcalf her character takes her to a Bulls game, and she's describing Michael Jordan to a blind person, like, you know, what Michael Jordan's like when he's playing.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay, so we shot that, you know, before with extras and stuff before the crowd came. And then I went underneath the basket with a camera. But, you know, I had a big 35 millimeter, you know, old school film camera.
That doesn't belong at a basketball game.
Not underneath the basket, no, right.
Right.
And Michael walked up to me and he goes, "So what are you filming?" And kind of, you know, Michael can be kind of, you know, hard.
Right.
"What are you filming?" "I'm filming you in a movie." He goes, "What movie?" "It's called Blink." "Oh, who's in it?" And I go, "Madeline Stowe." So at that time, she had just had a huge movie, The Last of the Mohicans. And I mean, she was a big actress.
Yeah.
He goes, "Don't know her." And then I go, "Laurie Metcalf." And he goes, "Roseanne?" And I go, "Yeah." "Okay." And then he goes, "Am I getting paid?" And I
You want to be like, ask your agent? Well, what'd you say?
Like, I said, "Yeah, I think like around 30 grand or something. I don't know, but I thought that's what I heard. But I'm just the camera guy, you know?"
Right.
And he goes, "What do they want me to do?" I said, "Well, really, I told him about the scene with the blind person and all that stuff. They want you to dunk because they want to describe you dunking."
And not in the layup line, but in the game.
In the game.
Okay.
In the game.
Okay.
So I'm under the basket. And so he just looks at me right before the game and he goes, "Stay on the hoop, first 3 times down." First 3 times down. Bam. 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 And then throughout the entire game, it was against the old Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah. So tell me play about Zoe.
So it was like, what's great about it is that was a really fun team. And it was a great trash talking team. So it was Larry Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Muggsy
Bogues,
Bogues. Kendall Gill.
Right. And I think it was Alonzo Mourning's rookie year.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so he started trash talking, and Jordan would come down and talk to me, like
during the game.
Like during the game to tell me what he was doing.
So
you know what I mean?
Like, I love it.
Right. So, and they were it was great. They were all over Larry Johnson because he had the Grandmama commercials out. So they were just all over him. Just killing him with trash talk.
I love it.
It was great. But that was like fun trash
talk.
Oh
yeah.
Okay. But Alonzo Mourning, he started to really trash talk
Georgetown.
Jordan.
Yeah, he ain't having it. Okay.
He was really trash talking. And, you know, I'm just sitting there going, this is not a good move for a rookie to do.
Right.
So the shot that's in the film, the ball goes out of bounds and he's throwing the ball in and he turns to the camera in the bat like this.
It's not, this is scripted?
No. This is just like,
we're
just filming it in the game.
Okay.
He just turns back to the camera like I'm back there and he goes, this motherfucker's been talking trash to me all day. And he goes, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw the ball into Scotty. Scotty's gonna throw it back to me and I'm gonna dunk over that motherfucker. Sure enough, throws the ball into Scotty, throws it back to him. Mourning hears all of it. He's right. He's
talking to you, talking trash to Mourning.
Yeah, and he's Mourning's the guy who's trying to block the inbound pass.
Right.
And so like he does it, and I mean it is just.
So he throws it to Scotty.
Back
cuts and
a monster. I mean total facial.
On Zoe.
On Zoe. And I swear to God, he pointed on the way down.
Oh, man.
And that's sort of like, it was like Babe Ruth stuff. Like when I was a kid, you heard about Babe Ruth pointing to.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this guy's in a whole other place.
That's crazy. And I've often talked to you about movies, documentaries, projects you wish you would have done. And one of them always comes to Connie Hawkins. And I think about that Michael Jordan story reminds me of Connie Hawkins earlier. And is that how your love got you to those places, to shoot Muhammad Ali, to shoot Jordan and other people?
So it's really interesting. Steve James and I, so Steve, great filmmaker. One of the things that we bonded on is one of the books that got me into reading was a book called Foul.
Okay.
And it was the story of Connie Hawkins, which is, you can't
incredible.
make up the stuff about Connie Hawkins.
No.
So, I mean, I can't remember, but his mother was blind or deaf. I can't, my brain goes, but you can find it. But anyways, he gets recruited to go to the University of Iowa. And I don't think he had much of an education. And, you know, he was really poor. So they fly him out to Iowa. They only show him black people. There's probably 6 black people on the campus. That's all they showed him.
And where is he coming
because
from?
This is like Don Nelson was a senior on that team.
Where is Connie coming from?
New York, Harlem.
Wow, New York to Iowa. What the hell?
Yeah,
Ain't nobody.
Right. So Iowa just won the national championship with Don Nelson. And so the freshman team played and whooped them. And Connie just destroyed. They had never seen anything like that because he was the first guy with the big swooping dunk
hold
and
the ball in
hold
one
the,
hand
hold the
because
ball
of
up
him.
like that. And
I used to hit Cutter's back door. See, we all think it's Jokic, and Jokic is great, or we all thought it was me, or we all thought it was Kareem. But Connie was one of the innovators in holding that ball up and hitting backdoor cutters and getting them involved with jump shots.
And it was like one of those movies that would have been almost impossible to get made in that day because, one, you'd have to have a black star. You'd also have to have a black star who could play basketball. So like, you would have been perfect, right? What's great about it is, it's kind of the beginning of the weird modern NBA, which was, you know, Connie was blacklisted from NBA basketball because he wasn't educated. There was a huge betting scandal in New York with a guy named Jack Molinas. And Molinas knew Connie from Rutgers and the city and all that stuff in New York. So he knew Connie was the perfect guy to set up, that he was doing the bets, you know, taking money and they were betting on him. He had nothing to do with it. And David Stern then, you know, who everybody kind of loves, blacklisted him from the NBA. So he ended up playing on the Globetrotters. And then when the CBA started, he ended up in Pittsburgh, where this 2 lawyers, a couple, 2 Jewish lawyers couple, realized that there's no way, from knowing him, there's no way that Connie could have done this. And they went out and proved him innocent.
They proved him innocent?
Oh, yeah. And then he was reinstated into the NBA.
Did the league apologize? Did anything happen?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But I mean, the best years of his basketball life were gone.
Yeah.
And he was also a pariah. And he goes back into the league, and by that time he had really messed up his knee. And he played the rest of his career, similar to what Grant Hill was talking about, basically on one leg. You know what I mean? And he was still an all-star every year. Still an all-star. I think he's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's amazing story. And just about all the gambling stuff. And what was great was Molinas, you know, this really heavy-duty mob-related, all this accountant, money guy. He gets put into jail, and what does he end up doing? He's investing all the money for the prison, like the warden, just like it was in another movie.
He's investing money
for like all the guys who work in the prison.
Oh wow! Oh, that's a movie in itself. Yeah. After he goes,
but I mean, it's one of those great American stories, but also, in a way, there's no way Hollywood now maybe. But at that time, they just to have a lead actor. It would have had to been a ball player. We wouldn't have settled for anything less. But that book, if you can find it, it's hard to find, but it's Foul. And it is one of the best books I've ever read. It really, like, I think I read it when I was in like 7th grade.
Wow.
And it really made me a reader.
Wow.
It was and it made me fall in love with sports.
That's what's
in
up,
a very different way, because it was so complicated, dealt with race, dealt with all this stuff, you know, and dealt with all these people who I knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really know them.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew, which I think sort of in a way got me interested in documentaries and things like that, because I knew who David Stern was at the time. He was just a lawyer for the NBA. Then, when I was, you know, he was the guy.
That's right.
So
yeah.
it's like, you know, seeing this go on.
Wow,
and then
David
also,
Stern was against him and Spencer Haywood then, as I'm thinking, as a lawyer of the NBA. Oh, keep going.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And, you know, Peter, the conversations, the thousands of hours that we've had conversations, that's what reinforced my love of storytelling and helped me dive in the wonderful rabbit hole of storytellers. I knew I had a great career. I knew that I had won, kind of, but I wanted to know the score. I wanted to know what happened, how that happened here. Kind of put that under the microscope and look at everything from that way. And just in stories, your humanity, who you are, has really been fun looking at that.
But I also think that that was what made it special, was that you gave me the gift, and your family gave me the gift of letting me in. I mean, why would they let me in? You know, like, I spent so much time with your mom and dad. I got to know them. I hope I built trust with them.
No.
No, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, even just them talking about how they met and how they, and you know, they're dating, and all of that was so great. And then talking about what they went through in high school, when all of a sudden, they weren't sports parents, and suddenly the golden ticket arrives. And how do you navigate that? Suddenly Ed Martin comes in, and here's a guy who's telling your dad, hey, I can help you out. If you need this, I can help you, you know, like all that, you know, and he was one of many, I assume, right, that would sit around at ball games and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, like, because it was your family telling these stories, it was, you know, really fascinating to hear. And I think, in a way, I kept thinking all the time that, you know, if you're a ball player, right, it's like you're away from your family all the time. It's like, it's hard to be with them. And like, what was interesting was, I felt like I was watching you, even though you guys are super tight, I don't mean it like that, but reconnect in a different way. Is that true, or?
Yeah, because it was stories, and we only reconnected in a different way because I was at the point where I could take the blinders off and say, okay. Because I couldn't have anything slow me down at the time. Not a timeout, not a wife, not a kid, nothing. Basketball was my focus. That's why there's so many things that judge me about. And I'm like, if you're gonna judge me for having blinders on to ignore the BS. Because I was really good at that, but at the same time, when you ignore the BS, you leave out a lot of pleasantries, a lot of stories, a lot of love, a lot of hugs, a lot of people. And so I was, you know, I remember going to the storage unit with you and opening up.
That was one of the coolest days, or not a day, half a day of filming.
I gave my father every trophy I ever had. And at the house, you know, you're in high school, you don't take him to college. And if, you know, I think the Hall of Fame jacket and trophy, I think he has it because I know it's a safe place with him. So going to the storage.
I'm not so sure that storage place is safe, but.
You know what?
I don't think it's temperature.
Safe,
I don't think it's temperature controlled is what I mean. Not like it's dangerous.
No, but and it might be dangerous. But going through all of those trophies and medals and talking with my father, it brought back so much, everything that I knew.
Can I set it up a little?
Yeah.
Which was basically what we did is that we decided to go. I mean, your dad had stuff in the home and stuff like that, and you weren't. It wasn't like in your home there was stuff about you and trophies all over the house and all that stuff. There was nothing really.
Yeah.
And so going to the storage locker, it's like your dad opened this storage locker, you know, in Detroit, and it was like this treasure trove. It was like every little medal you won since you had played basketball. Oh, here's the Gatorade Player of the Year here it is for the 3rd year in the row. I mean, like, just this incredible stuff. And it's just in this storage locker in Detroit, you know, and it's like, it was just wild. And you were like a kid, kind of, in the sense of like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I did.
But like, in a way, it was like it was all out of your mind.
It was, Peter, because in order for me to get to the next level, I had to forget the past. Great accomplishments, like players that go in the league and be like, I'm the #1 pick, I'm good, they're gonna suck. Because if you so happy that you were the #1 pick, I'm like, I'm the #1 pick, I want to be Rookie of the Year. I'm the Rookie of the Year, I want to be this. And so the goals kept ratcheting up, and that could be great as a competitor. And again, if you have blinders on, you're really trying to control everything that comes in your brain, which is good, but at the same time, I was missing out on so many wonderful moments with family and friends.
But I also think a lot of that had to do with your mom and dad, because I think your mom and dad, I mean, the other thing that hopefully people will see from footage that we've done is that you release it however you want to release it over the years, is that how accomplished your family is. Yeah, you're a Hall of Fame basketball player.
Right.
But your brother Jason, amazing.
Yeah.
Your brother David, amazing. Rachel, I mean,
Yeah, Jeff,
this is
yeah,
Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like everybody in your family is amazing. They may not necessarily get trophies for it. And I don't think your family would have had, I can't imagine in your house in Detroit, you know, the small house with 1 bathroom for everybody and
7 people, 1 bathroom.
Yeah, and you could hardly even fit in it. You know, with your head, you had.
I remember getting in the bathtub like, wait, I live here. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think they would have put up. I mean, maybe newspaper articles. You know what I'm saying?
No.
They were proud,
Yeah.
but they were as proud of all the other kids as they were of you.
Oh.
It was like that was the thing that was
100%.
so amazing to see, because normally the other kids get passed over. It's like, you know, and when I look at you, I know you work for it, but it's sort of like being a prodigy in a way, right? I mean, and prodigies have to work to be great, but it's like but your whole family was.
Yeah, it just happened earlier for me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited about my new book. It's taken a long time to write it. I wrote it because I'm grateful and I'm thankful. I want to celebrate a successful journey. I want to honor my parents and the village that raised me.
We call a timeout. Michigan doesn't have any.
I want to acknowledge the obstacles that I had to overcome. It damn sure wasn't easy. And I want to share how I got over it.
Back to the storytelling part, I had so many people tell my story. I had people that I had played with tell my story but wasn't at the game or didn't go back home with me. I had reporters, famous reporters, follow us around for years and write stories on our life. I remember one reporter in the book Fab Five wrote, as Chris walked up the stairs in the draft, he looked around. I was like, motherfucker, you wasn't even there.
Now, you don't have to use this, but I mean, Mitch Albom, who's now this huge writer, right? I mean, what is it? Sundays with more, you know, I mean, he's an iconic figure now as a writer. I mean, he wrote his first real book was about the Fab Five. And I don't think he really knew you the way that book represents. And what was sad is you told me that you kind of looked up to him in the fact that you kind of were thinking about being a writer or a journalist or at that time. And then, you know, I think he has not done you well, let's put it that way. But the thing that was fascinating about, and maybe that's changed since we were filming, you know, people change. But the thing that was wild is that the entire time we were filming, he was still on radio in Detroit. He's a famous author, all this stuff. We could not get him to sit down to do an interview about you. Blew my mind.
Why do you think that was?
I think he believed the narrative, the other narrative.
So do you
And I think he knew your narrative was right, but the other narrative played a lot better for him in terms of like him being on TV, him being a public, him, all those things, being a Michigan guy, you know, like in Michigan.
Peter, he surprised the hell out of me saying at the end, wait a minute, I don't think Chris took the money.
Right. Out of nowhere.
What the hell? So you're the dragon chasing this story the whole time,
He's
pumping
the journalist.
up,
He's
putting
the journalist.
fire behind this. Writing a
Yeah.
book where we give you pictures. Don't get $1 from the Fab Five. You don't even say, let us put money in your charity.
Yeah.
We're 18-year-old, 20-year-old kids. He gets close with parents, gets family and kids pictures.
Same thing with Ed Martin. You know, there were a lot of things about a guy like Ed Martin who, you know, did get federally indicted and all that stuff, and who was, I believe, a numbers runner for the mob at the, you know, the auto plants. There were a lot of things about him that he did that were good, right? I mean, you would say good. I mean, he was in the hood, all this stuff, but at the same time, he wanted his pro player, right? And I think he felt let down that you weren't going to be his pro player. But it's just like all those things are so complicated.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
In talking to the parole officer
Oh my God,
yeah. Shout out. But he told me that he talked to Ed, and Ed said, I'm really pissed that the kid doesn't call me. And that was the impetus for putting my name on, or one of the reasons. And I get it, because I had blinders on. I would go months without calling my mama because I had blinders on. I'm a mama's boy. I would go months because I'm playing against Akeem, Shaq, this guy. Y'all told me like to work hard and go, and I'm a man, I'm gone. This is what it is. I'm not a little kid anymore. And so I get that. And there were so many people, though, Peter, that happened with that. Truthfully, I could care less that it happened because I'm on a journey and you're not my brother, my cousin. But at the same time, I understood his frustration. What was so funny, though, to me was the fact that if you look at all the news articles before I get recruited, we interviewed Coach Izzo, who should have been the most bitter man in the world because it was Coach Izzo's first year of being the head coach.
He loved you.
It was his. I was going to play for Judd Heathcote 1 year, and then Izzo was going to come in. And then Coach Heathcote's book, it says the whole reason why I didn't go to Michigan State because of Minnesota. I was going to Michigan State. The thing that frustrated me was, Ed, I could have gone anywhere I wanted to. He would have been there. It wasn't the college, and I kept going.
Coach Izzo told me, I was there, you weren't there for that interview. And Coach Izzo told me that when he heard where you were going, he cried. I mean, and it wasn't just crying, I don't think it was just crying like, oh, I'm losing this guy. I mean, he honestly really wanted you on that team in a very different way. I mean, I think he felt like this was a great fit. And he was crying because he lost the best player in the country. But I'm just saying, like, but I'm talking, this is like 25 years later. But it's not like, you know, he's still like well enough.
No, but I was able to speak to Coach Izzo. Like you said, you were interviewing. I was able to not only talk to Coach Izzo, but go through like the whole college discussion. When we talked to Sonny Vaccaro, I didn't know Sonny Vaccaro knew Ed for 30 years. When we talked to Coach Fisher, I didn't know Coach Fisher knew Ed Martin for 30 years.
He knew him from when he was a high school coach at Rich Central High School in Illinois.
So all I kept going was, you mean I went through all this? Not one person come to trial, not one person says a positive thing in the paper, and all y'all knew him before I was even born? And then it clicked, like, oh, I get it. I know it. And then someone who I promised him I would never.
Ed was known by every Midwestern high school coach. I mean, because Rich Central, I believe it was Central, that's where Kendall Gill went. That's where, you know what I'm saying, like, of that era, right? He knew all those guys.
Now, in saying that, let's say he was a pariah, let's say he helped kids to get help back. I never thought that. I never thought that. And I think that's when you and I started debating it, because to tell you the truth, I think that's why the NCAA allows NIL now. See, they didn't want it before, because if I'm close with Ed or a black guy is close with me, they're not going to give him the money to babysit me to come up to school. And so to me, it was a control thing to keep these kids in the hood away from people that love them, that are good guides, that help them along the way, separate them, keep the money, and now also we're in their ear because we don't know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So it was so many discussions. It wasn't just Ed. It wasn't just me going to Country Day, this college preparatory high school that can give me a scholarship to play basketball.
A place that you didn't want to go to, you tried to get out of,
oh my God.
Right? But when the shit hit the fan, who had your back?
Country Day.
So who went to court? They wanted you to take down your high school banners. Right?
How did Dennis Archer?
And they went, and the NCAA, Michigan wouldn't help you. Michigan didn't stand up for you. Your high school went and said, we're not going to take these down. Forget it.
But they just didn't say we're not going to take these down. They went to court.
Right.
They fought. And the judge said, you're right.
Yeah.
So how could that happen in Michigan, not do it unless? And so when I found all that out, then you hear chirping from guys who, you know, you hear chirping and all this other things. At that time, it gave me a freedom, because I wasn't at peace. I was trying to figure, I was like, okay, I just finished playing the league. Now let me see what the hell was going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, because when I hurt my knee at the end of my career, like I was too worried about the business at hand. And I've seen so many players fall by the wayside for rumors.
Right.
And that's at the end of the day how I had to look at it, like, yeah, it's a rumor. Okay, this guy's saying is this, it's a rumor. This guy's saying is this. And so that 30 for 30 documentary, I mean, I love Chuck D. Of course I love Ice Cube and Chuck D. And I thought it had some really great points. But I also thought it was dead and missing all of what's cool now. So then it was just the socks, just this and that. That's all they wanted to talk about. But, you know, I was part of it when, they sold 200,000 pair of socks, turn our shirts inside out. Mm-hmm. Like, they took the whole revolution away. They kept the revolution because Chuck D. But besides
your revolution was televised.
How about that?
You know what I
Gil
mean?
Scott.
I mean, it was televised.
Yeah.
And
but to put it in clips of documentaries where the essence is concentrated into the fake, into just the flash, to me, Jawan's the first player to graduate. Now, how isn't this in there? Jawan's the first player to leave school early and graduate on time.
Right.
Like let's just talk about all those things along with our play and, you know, the death threats and coach's father getting us to play. Like, all that was special, but I saw that, okay, you can't win, meaning this is a hell of a documentary because you guys are in it and you did something special. And the truth ain't even really important to everybody. And so to me, it helped me go and say, I'm going to do this project. And I remember when I called you, you said, listen, you're about to go through hell and you got to hold yourself accountable. You said, as a friend, that's all you got to do, because you got the pen, you can do this. And even if you come to a conclusion, it better be a real conclusion in your head that you're really solid and that you came with, and not just putting makeup on a pig. And I've always felt that responsibility. That's why I wanted to go home and show the vulnerability of my father, who grew up on the plantation, because this ain't a game for us. You think 250,000 when my father is only telling me, boy, you better own your name. You better own a name on the back of your jersey. Or my mother's telling me, write your story, son. And I'm wondering, why is she doing this? This is like the days.
Well, you're in college. Your posters, you're selling Huarache shoes, Foot Locker, you're everywhere, right? You're not making a dime. And you need money for food. Still in college.
Oh, yeah. And the reporter that chased me down and said I was taking money happened to be in there that day when I asked him for money to buy a sandwich.
Yeah.
And so I learned at a young age, 12, 13, when I first went on TV, I learned at a young age, do not try to put the fire out of every room or you'll go crazy. I had people, oh yeah, he did this and he lives down the street and he was dating my friend. And I was like, oh my God, it's not true. It's not true. And then it was like, wait a minute. I don't even have the energy to address everything. And for once I had the energy to sit down, to listen, to argue with God, to talk to myself, to figure things out, go through old transcripts, watch games. You know, even the timeout that we did, and you know, I knew how mad I was, I knew other stuff, but I hadn't watched the game.
Yeah.
And when I watched the game and took notes for the book, I was like, yeah. And so you really gave me an opportunity.
It was like seeing that when I found the footage of you and David in the hall.
Oh man, when he runs up to me, it's chilling. Because I knew David was there, but no one ever, how did you find that footage? Like,
But what's interesting about that, right? There had to be photos, all this stuff. All I could think about was like, he's not in Michigan gear. I know that's weird. I'm looking at your face, right? David's looking up at you smiling.
I think he had Miami or something.
Miami, I think it was.
Yeah, because I saw him the day before on his birthday, and this is what pisses me off about the whole Michigan narrative, if I really want to come down to it. The day before we played the Final Four, I went and saw Dave and we hung out at a food court. And it was his birthday and I couldn't get him anything. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I was thinking when I win this bitch, I'm going to the league. Because here's my brother on his 12th birthday and I'm big brother. I'm supposed to be like, man, and buy mama something and don't tell him where you got it. And I couldn't do those things. And so to be accused of something that you didn't do, but maybe would have done, if the opportunity presented itself, I don't know. But then not be able to have the rewards of having that money and doing stuff with it, it was pissing me off, and I knew where the narrative was coming from I knew where it was coming from. And so I really want to thank you for allowing me to have guardrails as I wrote the book, because I didn't have anything but an editor. Shout out to my boy Kevin Cottrell. And I did it 100% minus you, 100% minus the editor on my own. And I really was excited about that. And that's why it's funny, Peter, and to kind of wrap this up, man, I was sitting up there with the Fab Five the other day, and we did the Michigan versus UConn Altcast. And it was fun. It was great. I love the fellas. Great being with them, but we've had some great times. And I also hate doing that. Oh, the fellas are great. Like, those are my boys. I don't want to talk about how great, I'm not going to talk about how great you are every time I see you. What's up with Peter? That's my boy. What? We good, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I was sitting up there, though, and it was just, you know, you talk about not having peace. And I remember watching Juwan win the championship, and you were filming me that night. And I remember all the emotions that were going through my head because, I was pissed. I was so happy.
You were happy for him, but you were not in a happy place.
Oh, no, because I was thinking, man, that's me and his championship. You know what I'm saying? Like then, let's go back and think, because this is my number one partner, throwing the oops and all this. And I just remember that moment.
And he was pretty much at that point almost like a player coach, right?
Oh yeah,
he was on the bench. He was like he played.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
But he won that for us, even if he didn't. But he did, because he can't do anything without winning for us. I can't do anything without winning it for them. And so I felt like, he won. And I remember sitting there the other night at such peace. I remember sitting there going, Ray hasn't been on in a while. Let me mess with him. And meaning, a lot of people don't know who Ray is. He's the one always forgotten out the Fab Five. Well, they know him now because we're telling jokes back and forth. And it was such a great moment with Jalen, Juwan, Jimmy, Ray. And it's so funny because the reason why you don't want to be bitter is because the younger generation, they just hear the story. I can't get mad at them for whatever they thought. And most of them don't care. And then you have the older ones that are going to think whatever they're going to think and be whatever they're going to be. And what I had to do was accept it. And a lot of the acceptance was me putting it down on paper, was me seeing it. And being like, yeah, you ain't crazy, kid. Now let's put the blinders on with a little hole in the opening for family and friends and go chase this next goal. Out of all the things that we shot Izzo, we shot Fisher, Sonny Vaccaro, we shot the parole officer, we shot the lawyer at the time. And I mean, all of them were pretty consistent. They were consistent where I wasn't. They were consistent where all of them were. Like, it was a wonderful, eye-opening exercise. Can you tell me one of the best things and one of the worst things as a film writer and as a friend that you recorded, or that information that you had to put together for yourself while we were walking along this journey to discover what happened along my way from high school to the NBA?
Can I tell you
And we finished at the Hall of Fame in a room with you and just a select group of friends and family.
Which was awesome. That was, well, that's a highlight for me, was the Hall of Fame, because instead of you having a huge party, you just had people who cared about you in your life, that you felt were important to you. And it was a way for everybody to meet each other, and you were able to walk around and introduce people. It was just the greatest thing, rather than like, let's just party like crazy and have every celebrity in the world there, because you could have. And it was,
it was a moment to take a deep breath.
Very moving.
Yeah.
And also for me, knowing how much that meant to you, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I would say the most interesting discussion that we had, and it's more than filming to me, just as friends, was in it, because it was really about fatherhood and being an older brother and all this stuff. Was, so one, I think somebody who brought you a lot of peace was Erica. And then I was there for all that time of when you guys were trying to have children, which was a journey in itself.
Talk about peace, right? It was a lot coming in.
You had a lot going on, you know, in many, many ways. But the one thing that was really interesting was I had a really hard time understanding, like, why you took the charge for, I mean, you took the fall for in that court case. But we talked
I forgot
for
about
hours.
even.
But we talked hours and hours and hours about this. And it was like, because they did not have enough to do anything to you.
Ed died.
Ed died. There was no evidence. The evidence was a piece of paper that said $280,000 on it, whatever it was. Didn't have your name on it. Didn't have. I mean, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I can't wait to get into that one day.
No, but I'm just saying. There's nothing. And then I'm like, why? You know, and we would talk about it, and you were like very strong. I'm not putting my family having to go and testify in a federal court. I'm not doing it. I'd rather I'll take the fall, and fine.
Thank you for joining me. And before we let Peter go, I want to say something to the audience, and I want to say something to my friend. You know, everybody in this business talks about telling stories. That's what this business is about. And telling stories, well, it's become a buzzword. Everybody's a storyteller now. Everybody's got a podcast, everybody's got a production company, everybody's got a documentary in development. But to me, here's what most people don't understand. You can't trust your story to just anyone. You cannot hand the most important chapters of your life to someone who doesn't understand the weight of what they're holding. I learned that the hard way. I've had my story told about me. I've watched people who never sat in my living room, who never met my mother, who never walked through Detroit with me, tell the world who Chris Webber is. And when that happens, when someone takes the Fab Five, or the timeout, or the #1 pick, or anything that people may have heard, it takes everything you've lived through and reduces it to a highlight package with a narrator who wasn't there. You feel it. That stays with you. So when I tell you that Peter Gilbert is the person I trust to tell stories, my stories, our stories, I want you to understand what that means. That's not a business decision, that's a life decision. And one day when the full story gets told the way it deserves to be told, yeah, Peter's gonna have to be in the room, because he's the only filmmaker I trust to hold it. Because look, you can't just hand your story to just anyone. You hand it to someone who spent their whole life proving they'll carry it right. Peter, thank you, brother. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for a friendship of many years. And thank you most importantly for every story you've ever protected. That's our show.